Hi everyone, welcome to another live ukulele lesson with me, Matt Stead. In today's lesson we're going to take a look at the blues. We're going to show how the blues kind of evolved over time from something really raw and quite basic to something quite jazzy and really beautiful. I'm going to show you some really simple chords that we can add to our blues progressions to make them sound a lot nicer. And we'll also use this to investigate the circle of fifths as well, that magic musical tool which allows you to do so much. I'll talk to you about that in a lot more detail in a bit. Hi guys, hi Angela, hi Sonia. Don't forget to have your live chat switched on like these guys so that you can chat in the comments and you can ask questions as well. I love questions, so if you've got any questions, they don't even necessarily have to be kind of relevant to what we're doing at that moment. Just let me know because I'm always really glad to help with those. A couple of announcements just before we get going whilst people arrive. Things that we've got coming up. I've just finished a really nice arrangement of Strawberry Fields Forever by the Beatles. So if you're doing my Beatles course, this is going to be the next lesson, which I'm really excited about. It has the coolest little intro. I'll see if I can remember it off by heart. I haven't got the music in front of me, but it's got this like nice... No, I've forgotten it. Can I remember it? Oh yeah, I remember. Something like that. It's so sweet and so simple to do. I'll teach you that in the lesson. It's such a cool little piece. I absolutely love it. Hi Karen, I hope you're doing well. We've also got Melodic Mondays coming up this coming Monday, and for this one we're going to have a look at I'll Fly Away. Brilliant clawhammer tune. We're old time tune even. We're going to do it a couple of ways, but the main thing is we're going to make our ukulele. We're going to make our ukulele sound like two, which is going to be a whole heap of fun. So that's going to be this coming Monday at 6 o'clock. If you don't already know, what we do is we alternate Melodic Mondays with Canopila Mondays, which is where we have the jam. Hi Barbara, hope it's good where you are. It's super hot here. It's just starting to build up. Apparently it's going to be 33 degrees tomorrow, so that's going to be proper sweltering. Just to finish what we've got coming up, we've also got Canopila Mondays the week after, and we've got a Beatles special on that. You might have guessed by my Beatles t-shirt I've gone a little bit Beatles mad now. It's not just because I'm doing a Beatles course. I'm just listening to their records, rewatching the anthology, really getting into it. So hence why we've got a lot of Beatles stuff coming up. And speaking of which, for the next live lesson in 2 weeks' time, I'm going to teach you a really intricate and beautiful chord melody arrangement of Across the Universe. It's one of the ones I've done in the Beatles course, but I thought it might be nice to go over it really slowly and teach it you measure by measure and get you guys asking any questions as you go along, so you get some really valuable learning from that. Okay then guys, so as I say, any questions or anything, just drop them in the live chat. So what we're going to do, first of all, we'll look at the standard form of the 12-bar blues. I'll explain how it works and why it works, and then we'll start adding things into it. So we'll take what could be kind of quite a boring, not boring, but quite a plain progression. Just standard 12-bar blues. I'm going to teach you how to add all these interesting chords in to kind of just jazz it up. so we can make it really nice and jazzy and really sing through. And as we do it, as I say, we'll kind of explore a bit of historical elements as to why it looks like that and how it's that way. I'll bring the worksheets on screen, but they're available via the website. If you're a member, you get them at no extra cost, included in your membership. And if you're not a member, you can download them for £5 from my pay hip. I'll keep them up here as well so you can see what's going on, even if you haven't had a chance to download them. So we're going to do this in the key of C, just because it's the easiest key, right? There's no sharps and flats, so it keeps everything a bit more straightforward. Plus, most people know the chords really well. Hi, Laura. Most people know the chords really well in the key of C as well. Oh, it's warm up in Scotland even. It must be warm then. So we'll keep it in the key of C. Now, this is going to go back to what we do on Canacapilla Mondays, where we kind of number the chords 1 through to 7, each one having its own personality. So in the key of C, C would be the 1 chord, D minor 2, E minor 3, F would be 4, G 5, A minor 6, and then a B diminished at the end there. And notice that the basic 12-bar blues is based on 3 chords, C, F7 and G7 in this instance. That's the 1 chord, which sets you off on a journey or brings you resolution. The 4 chord, which is F in this case, and we're going to play it as an F7. I'll explain why in a minute. That kind of creates a sense of change, which is really, really simple and lovely. And then we've also got our 5 chord, which again we're playing as a dominant 7th. That just means if you ever see a chord with a letter and then just a number, no M, A, G or little m, that just means dominant 7. We just say G7. And the 5 chord, that G7, is all about introducing some tension to the piece as we go. So if we just have a look at the basic form, every one of these gaps here with a chord is a measure or 4 beats. So if you wanted to play along with me, we'd have C for 4. And we'd have 4 lots of 4. 2, 3, 4. Okay, then we would go to, sorry, just moving my camera. Then we would go to F7. If you're not sure about that, it just looks like a normal F chord with our ring finger added here, 3rd fret of the C string. You can also add your little finger down here for this high C note if you want. It works either way, okay? And we've got that for 2 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Back to the resolution of the 1 chord. Then we have the tension of the 5 chord, this G7, and it wants to go back to the 1 chord. 5 chord always leads back to 1, so G7. You've probably done this at the end of a song, right? And that's that G7 wanting to resolve itself to the C, basically. Now, what happens in most 12-bar blues is that G7 goes back to a C, but via the F7, so we get more build-up of tension, and then we hit the C there, which is really nice. Now, the blues scale is really interesting historically with the blues. Obviously, most of the music came out of Africa with slavery and all sorts of things in the Deep South, like we had field hollers and we had chain gangs and we had slave songs. And a lot of it is based on what we call the blues scale, which uses a lot of flatted notes. I'll show you what I mean. Don't worry about the theory too much. I'm not going to go crazy theory heavy today. But a normal C major scale looks and sounds like this. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Okay, so kind of quite a happy sounding scale. The blues scale, however, has this flatted 3rd in it, this flatted 5th, flatted 7, and then we're back to 1. Right, it instantaneously makes us think of the blues. And it's really interesting historically that we associate flatted notes or minor scales with the blues. And it makes sense because these people were singing sad songs, you know, about their situation, because they're in most cases a really bad situation. And that's kind of fascinating because they didn't necessarily have the music theory to understand that's what they were doing. They did it naturally, and I think that's really, really interesting. So blues scales use those flatted notes to create a sense of darkness or sadness. And that's why when we do the 5 chord and the 4 chord, rather than playing them as a G major, by adding the flat 7 in G, which is this one, it gives it a sadder, grittier feel. And the same with this F, rather than doing a normal F, by adding the flatted 7th of F, the F scale, we get a grittier sound. Okay, so let's just play through this basic 12-bar blues. There are other forms of blues. 16-bar blues is quite unusual. 8-bar blues is fairly common. If you've ever played Trouble in Mind, that's a good example of 8-bar blues. 8-bar blues has more of a folky feel, but 12-bar blues is the most accepted form of blues music. And I think it all goes back to the fact that the very first ever published piece of blues music was written by W.C. Handy, and it was St. Louis Blues, and that was a 12-bar blues, hence how we've kept that format. And you can clearly see the 12 bars, right? We've got 4 bars here, 4 bars here, 4 bars here. 12 times 3 is 12. Sorry, 4 times 3 is 12. Having a silly moment there. What else did I want to tell you about this? Just quickly, there was something else, but it will come back to me in a minute, I'm sure. Oh yeah, I was just going to say another format for part of the blues which is really important is that repetition. If you think of Hound Dog, not the Elvis version but the original, we've got that nice repetition. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Then repetition on the next line. You're nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Well, you ain't never seen a rabbit in you, ain't no friend of mine. We've got that double repetition and then an answer, and most 12-bar blues follows that. I got the St. Louis blues, just as blue as can be. I got the St. Louis blues, just as blue as can be. See that repetition? Well, my baby left me. Da-da-da-da-da-da. So a very kind of formulaic way of playing, but it really frees you up for some improvisation, which is really nice. Sonia's having a bit of trouble. I seem to be frozen on screen. So I think... Let me know in the comments, guys, if anyone else has got that issue. I'll just reply. I think Sonia probably just needs to... Sonia, if you can hear me, I think you probably just need to refresh your browser. That should work and get it going. I'll just put it in the comments as well, just in case. There we go. Okay, fantastic. Let's have a little playthrough then. I'll come in on close camera and let's just play through that 12-bar blues. Hi Karen, hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well. Cool. All right, here we go then. So from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, F7, 1, 2. C, 2, G7, F7, and C. We could do Hound Dog to it. Let's go from the top. You're nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. While you ain't never caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine. One more. Here we have the 1 chord, setting us off on a journey. Then a bit of change from the 4 chords, resolution to 1. We have the tension of 5 delayed and back to 1. So there we go, we've got a really nice bit of blues going on there, which is fantastic already. And you can use that for so many songs. It's just brilliant. So many R&B songs, rock and roll songs, and of course classic blues, which is really nice. Now, why did we then start to mess about with it? Well, musicians being musicians, if you think about the history of jazz, things became more and more sophisticated until eventually you get this cyclical thing where people rebel against that and suddenly we go towards more simple music. So if you think about the history of jazz from ragtime and then into trad jazz, then into that kind of great American songbook, really sophisticated jazz, things like All the Things You Are with all those key changes, and then crazy, confusing but sophisticated bebop. And then we had Miles Davis, who brought everything back a little bit. Music likes to kind of evolve and go through lots of changes as it goes, basically because musicians get bored. That's the way I see it. So what happened was people started to add extra chords to this blues progression. And the lovely thing is you can either think of them as chords that you can add to embellish a blues progression, so you could do this to any blues progression, or you can think of them as just kind of a new form of blues when you do them. So the first we're going to do is often called the quick change. And there's not much of a change in this one. You'll see it down here. The basic chords are the same. We've still got C setting us off. Only for a little bit of change. Remember, we call that F chord, the 4 chord, we call the change chord. We're going straight to an F7. Okay, and it's called the quick change. Guess why? Because it changes quickly, right? It adds that second measure in of the 4 chord, which is really lovely. A couple of ways you can do it. You can either do a C the normal way and then go to this F7 with 3 fingers. Or if you want, what I often like to do is I'll start by playing a C with my little finger and then I can go to this 4-finger version, which is really nice. This is really useful because later on we're going to put in a little walk down, and you can do that beautifully with this shape chord. Now, if you're wondering about these chord shapes, they're all in the back of your sheets, just so you can find them. There's different options. We've got the chords up the fretboard, which we'll have a look at if we've got time later on. But we've also got the first position or open chords as well down there. So we're just going to use the normal open ones for now. Okay. So if I go back, oh, sorry, it hit the wrong thing. If I go back to the first screen, let's see what the quick change sounds like. So instead of 4 measures of C, we've got 1 measure of C, 2, 3, 4, 1 of F7, and we're back to the C. We've got the next line's exactly the same as it was. Then we've got the G7 as before, F7. Now notice at the end, we've got that really nice turnaround, that lovely 5 chord at the end. And remember what I said, that 5 chord is all about introducing a little bit of tension. It makes you want to go back to the 1 chord. What do we start with at the song? At the start of the song, it's that 1 chord. So adding that 5 chord in, we call it a turnaround because it makes you want to turn around and go back to the start. It's really lovely. Now, if you want to be super fancy pants at this, it's quite a nice thing to do. Notice that when I get to that final G7, I like to come down with a chuck. You could just do a normal down strum if you're not sure, but all I'm doing is taking all the tension out of these fingers. So I get that sound. Doesn't matter if this string rings out a bit. And then I'm just doing a couple of either ups or down strums. I'm muting the first ever so slightly, like that, and then just a down strum. And you get this lovely sound if I play the last line for you. Here it comes. Isn't that cool? So 1, 2, 3, 4, chop, down, down. It's a cool way of doing it, isn't it? So let's have a go at that the quick change blues. And literally, if someone says to you on stage, we want to play the quick change blues in the key of C, this is exactly what they mean. We're going to the 4 chord on the second measure. Let's give it a go, guys. Let's give it a try. I come in on close cam again. 1, 2, 3, 4, C, F7, and then C, F7, another F7, and C, G7, F7, and C. Here we go. Chuck. Okay. I missed one of my downs because I was thinking so much about telling you to do it. I forgot to do it myself. But there we go. We get that lovely, lovely turnaround, which is really great. Let me know how you got on with that, folks. Let me know if you found that relatively simple to follow and it all makes sense. It's a really sweet, simple change that you can do. Now, let's take that up a level for anyone that fancies going like super fancy pants. You know how when we started this progression, I showed you a C with my little finger here? And then we played the F7 by putting these 3 fingers down whilst that little finger's still on this high C note. Okay, gives you this shape. Okay, you can think of it 2 ways. You can either think of it as coming from this little finger and adding these 3, or if you find that really tricky, you can think of adding an F shape down and then covering the 2 empty strings on that 3rd fret. That gives you an F7. Now, every time we go up a fret on our ukulele, we go up half a step. So the next chord, if we moved everything 1 fret to the right, we'd have an F sharp 7, F7, F sharp 7, F7. Even if I move back, because my finger falls off the fretboard, look, we get our E7, good old E7 that we know and love. So it's a movable chord. And if we take it up 2 frets to the 3rd, 4th and 5th frets like this, I'll show you the chord diagram in the back just so you can see. It's on page 5. See this, the chord diagram down here, the middle one in the bottom. Notice it's exactly the same shape as this F7. We've just moved it up to, hence little 3, okay? Now that's really lovely because when we go back to this simple 12-bar blues, even though it's just really simple 12-bar blues, it will sound really, really lovely on that last line, because now we'd have this F7 coming down, sorry, this G7 coming down to this F7 and then resolve into the C. And then I tend to do this one as a normal G7. That's really lovely because you really hear that sound of it descending, which is super nice. So let's just give that a try. We'll give it a try from the top, 12-bar blues like this, and we're going to play that G7 there to this F7 here. Let's give it a go. 1, 2, 3, 4, C, F7, C, F7, and C. Take that finger up to the 5th fret and build your G7. Take it back to F7. And then fingers off, but this one. Cool, huh? Now it's starting to sound really, really groovy. Let's take it up 1 more level. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to do that little rundown that I teased at the start. Isn't that lovely? It's really simple but really gorgeous. All we do is when we do this bottom line from the G7, we're going to play 3 beats of G7. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to move 1 fret back. That's an F sharp 7 or G flat 7 if you prefer. And then we're going to move back here again. Okay. And the timing is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll show you that again. 1, 2, 3, move. 1, 2, 3, 4. Isn't that cool? A really, really kind of nice little rundown that we can put in. Now, we're not going to do this each time because we're going to change these chords around in a little bit. But let's just give that a try just to see how it sounds from the top. Let's try our 12-bar blues with the quick change, and then we'll go to our fancy pants chords. If you're struggling with these up the fretboard ones, you can just do your normal ones as well. That'd be absolutely fine, and you can play along with us. It'll sound absolutely fine. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, C. F7. Back to C. F7. And C. Now get ready to go up to that 5th fret with your little finger. G7. And then the rundown. Now remember, it doesn't matter if you don't get that first time. You can watch the replay of this anytime. We're going to have lots of different options, and you can pause and take your time and work through it slowly. But doesn't that sound lovely? And this one is used, W.C. Handy's St. Louis Blues that I was talking about, written in Beale Street, you know, famous Beale Street. That one has that kind of that quick change in it. So I hate to see, here it is, the evening sun go down. I hate to see the evening sun go down, because my baby done left this town. Really nice, really nice. I love that song, W.C. Handy's St. Louis Blues. Just absolutely wonderful. Sorry, I just realised my mouse is out of charge and it's not letting me it's not letting me move my mouse, so you have to put up with my fat tummy for a minute on close camera whilst I just charge it for a second in the background. I think I might need to... Sorry guys, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going around the back of my computer to plug in my mouse so that it works. Right, let's take that one out. Hopefully that will give it just talk amongst yourselves. I'm nearly done. There we go. Right, let's see if that's given it enough. I'll just have to recharge it whilst I talk after that. Let's see. There it is. Yay, I've got a mouse. Cool. Okay, so that gives us our quick turnaround 12-bar blues, which is really cool in itself. Now, let's start to get a little bit more jazzy. So on the next page, I forgot to say, but you've all worked it out, I'm sure anyway, all the changes we're going to make are highlighted in red, just so you can see. So let's have a look at this next version. Now here we're adding lots of dominant 7th chords. Dominant 7th chords add a feel of movement to music. That's what they do. That's their important function, because they feel unstable. If you think about it, when you play a normal G chord, just your bog standard G, kind of just feels settled, doesn't it? There we are. It feels at home. But when we turn it into a G7, that F note there is making it feel unstable, and it wants to go back to the 1 chord. Feel that resolution. It's really nice, isn't it? It's for a couple of reasons. It's because this F note in it here likes to resolve to the E note here in the C chord, and our ears love the sound of 2 notes that are next to each other played simultaneously, and this B note here wants to resolve to this C. So we get that really nice feel of resolution when we do dominant 7th chords. Musicians found, this goes back to kind of George Gershwin and I Got Rhythm. I've done lots of lessons on this. You've probably heard me banging on about this quite often. Oh, good, thanks Karen, thank you. You've probably heard me banging about this before, that dominant 7th chords, they like to resolve to the major chords that they're 5 above. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take an example. A G7 likes to resolve to a C, because if we count up from 1, C, D, E, F, G, a G7 is 5 above a C, right? We got 5 notes. That's why that works. What about a C7? Where does a C7 like to resolve to? Well, a C7 likes to resolve to a G major, because if we count up from G, G, A, B, C, D. A D7, not a C7. I'm being daft. D7 likes to resolve to a G major. I can't count apparently because it's 5 above it. So if I do a D7, do you see that tension resolution? Let's try a C7, seeing as I got all mixed up. A C7 likes to resolve to an F, because if we count up from F, F, G, A, B, C. C is 5 above it. And we use a tool called the circle of fifths, which shows this in a little bit more detail. Now I'm going to nearly disappear here because I want to have 2 things up on screen at the same time if I possibly can. Let's see if I can do that. Yeah, I'll put that here. I can just about see my head, hopefully. Now, the circle of fifths is a tool that musicians use. And basically, when you go clockwise around that circle, the chords are 5 above the one preceding it. So if we go from C, G is 5 above C, D is 5 above G, A is 5 above D, and so on and so forth. And basically these chords, they like to resolve in an anti-clockwise direction. So if you play an A7, it really wants to go to a D. If you play a D7, it really wants to go to a G. And if you play a G7, it really wants to play to a C. And musicians have found you can put these chords together and they sound absolutely brilliant. Just take this away for a second and move this over here. So if I play all these chords as 7ths, so I'll do an A7. Notice that wants to go to a D chord. Tension, resolution. So A wants to go to D. But if I turn that D into a D7, that wants to go to a G, right? Tension, resolution. And then a G7 wants to go to a C. And you can go all the way around the circle of fifths like that. It's so clever, just that tension and resolution. And what musicians have realised is that if you play all of these as 7th chords until you get to the end, you get this really nice sense of tension and resolution. A7, D7, G7, and C. Cool, huh? Some jazz musicians have gone even further than that. I could go all the way around here from E to B flat. Have a listen. E7, A7, D7, G7, C7, F7, B flat for the resolution. So you can go as far or as little as you want. And this is what jazz musicians use to put music into a piece. So rather than just having straightforward chords, if we add in these dominant 7ths, it creates more movement. So that's what we've got here. We want to end on a C chord on the penultimate measure, just because if we look back, that was the chord that we resolved to. Look, we finish on a C here, and if we ignore the turnaround, we finish on a C there, right? So we want to get back to a C. So what jazz musicians started doing, and blues musicians to an extent, is when we get to this part of the song, we just go backwards around the circle of fifths until we get to the C, and then we've got a little turnaround on a G. Now this is where things start to sound really, really jazzy. Let's try it. So we've got C, F7. Just play 2 C's for now on the next bit. So another C, F7, another F7, C, A7 now, D7, G7 and C, and then a quick G7 to turn it around. Isn't that cool? Let's try that again now you've had a chance to have a little play at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, C, F7, 2 lots of C's, F7, C. Now feel the movement. A7, D7, G7, C, and then our little turnaround. Isn't that cool? So now we've got like even more movement, which is really, really cool, really, really lovely. Okay, so what is this C7 doing up here? Because that doesn't kind of belong to this pink progression, does it? Well, it's just creating a little bit more movement again. Basically, if you're heading towards a chord, you can play any chord that's 5 above it as a dominant 7th. That just means as a 7. And it sounds really great. So C7 is 5 above F. Okay, and we can check that out just to make sure I'm not fibbing. If we look at the circle of fifths, look at that. C is to the right of F, isn't it? Around 12 o'clock. Okay, so that creates a sense of tension and resolution in another place. So at the end of the top first line, we're going to play a normal C, then a C7, and that wants to go into that F, which is really nice. And that's because this note, B flat, likes to resolve into the A note there. Feel that resolution. It's really cool, isn't it? So let's try that. Let's try putting that little C7 at the end of the first line. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, C, F7, C. Now down to C7. F7, C. Now our nice movement. D7, G7, C, and turn around. Yeah, let's try that with the words from St. Louis Blues. So I hate to see the evening sun go down. I hate to see the evening sun go down, 'cause my baby, he done left this town. Let's give it a go. You don't have to sing along, I'll do it for you. But just so you can hear how now it's going to start to sound a little bit more jazzy. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. I hate to see the evening sun go down. I hate to see the evening sun go down, because my baby has done left this town. Isn't that lovely? Really, really nice. Now, another thing you can do to add a really kind of extra kind of tension on this C7 chord is to add some triplets in, which is one of my favourite things. So when we end the start of this first line, okay, we can add some really cool triplets. Now triplets, there's a couple of ways you can play them. You can do them the Hawaiian way, which is where we come down with our fingers. You can either use one finger or all your fingers, then the thumb, and then up. Triplets. Make sure this thumb's ready to come down in one movement. You don't want 1, 2, 3. You want 1, 2, 3. One sweet movement. Okay. Triplet, 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 triplet. That can take a bit of practice. But sounds really cool, right? The other way that I love to do it, which gives it a real bluesiness, is you go down all the way and then you just hit the outside 2 strings. See how I'm doing that? Full strum, touch, touch on the A and then the G string. And if you do that quickly, you get triplets that way. This takes a lot of practice, but if you do it really fast. Isn't that cool? It just really adds a sense of tension on that measure, which is really nice. That was just something I just fancied showing you for a little bit of fun. Karen's got a question. So Karen's just asking, so in other words, choose your 1 chord and then choose the 5 chord as corresponding to it and turn it into a 7th. Yeah, exactly that. So in this instance, because we're heading for this chord here at the end, which is, this chord here at the start of the second line, which is F, we could then add the 5 chord above that, which is C7. And that's exactly right, Karen. And that's what's happening all the way through that. So if you think about that C chord at the end, we're playing a G7, which is 5 above it. and then a D7 is 5 above G, and then an A7 is 5 above D. So you get that constant movement. And you can do that on any song. It instantly jazzifies it. If you think of a chord you're heading towards, just play the chord that's 5 above it, basically, and it will sound really, really sweet. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's just give it a go with those triplets. Now this might go a bit crazy and you might all fall apart on this measure, including myself, but let's just try it just for fun. This is just for giggles. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. I hate to see the evening sun go down. Here we go. I hate to see the evening sun go down. Then the A7. 'Cause my baby, he done left this town. Now, if anyone's interested in the kind of theory behind all this, not difficult music theory, but just historically why it happened. Part of the reason for adding this these extra chords is that if you think about jazz music, there's that famous quote that jazz music, there's no such thing as jazz music without improvisation. It's all about that improv. That's what turned kind of marching music into jazz music and ragtime into jazz music back in the day. And in the olden days, people used to solo using chord tones. That just means that when an A7 is played, they'd use the notes that make up an A7 to do a little solo. And when a D7 comes up, you'd use the notes from D7. So it gives the soloists more to play with, because you remember our original one, we only had 3 chords, C, F7 and G7. Well, now we've got more, haven't we? We've got C, we've got F, we've got A, D and G. So that's 5 chords already. So it makes it more interesting. Plus we get that lovely, lovely movement, which is great. Success! Love it, Karen. Brilliant. That's nice to hear. That's what we like to hear. Well, the next thing that they did is they took this lovely set of chords up here, the circle of fifths chords, and they did it in miniature at the end. And just like Karen was asking, so do we just put a chord that's 5 above the next one? Yeah, that's exactly what happens, and we do it in miniature here. So remember, we're ending on a G7. What jazz musicians started to do is that they would then add a D7 in front of the G7. They'd add an A7 in front of the D7, and then that creates another little mini movement section. And that's what we're going to do now. So at the end, each of these is 2 measures. You're going to play C for 2, A7 for 2, D7 for 2, G7 for 2, and then you're back to the start. It creates a really nice sense of movement. Let's do that again. 2, 3, 4, C, A7, D7, G7, C. Isn't that cool? Really, really nice. And it's exactly the same as these chords, just half a measure, so a bit quicker sounding. Let's try all of that together, guys. So we're going to do this version here. 1, 2, 3, 4. F7. C. Down to C7. F7. C. A7. D7. G7. C. What I like to do sometimes, just to show how it really works, is sometimes I'll take a really simple blues song and just sing it over the top. Let's try Hound Dog. Now, originally it would sound like this, right? Let me just, I'll just stay on this one, actually. Let me just play it. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Well, you ain't never caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine. Now let's see if it sounds a little bit more like jazz using these chords. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. You're nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Suddenly it sounds like we're playing jazz music as well as blues. Fantastic. And jazz music and blues music are really interlaced. Miles Davis says that you can't actually play jazz music unless you can play the blues, which is interesting. And a lot of his compositions used a 12-bar blue format or a 16-bar blues sometimes with Miles Davis, which is interesting. Let's up it yet another level. Now this is something that Count Basie used to do in a lot of his music, and this is where it really becomes jazzy. Remember how I said for any chord you can play the chord that's 5 above it, and we tend to play it as a dominant 7th. So if you're heading towards a C, you could play a G7 ahead of it. Well, that's really cool. Well, what we can also do is the dominant 7th chords, like C7, we can play another chord that's 5 above that. Sometimes it's called the 5 of the 5, or sometimes people call it 5 of the 1 dominant 7. Don't worry about the theory behind it too much. It just means that when we do one of these 7th chords, we can play a minor 7 that's 5 above it. And that gives little 2-5-1 progressions. Have you ever heard of 2-5-1 progressions? Like D minor 7, G7, C. That's the basis of so much jazz music. Those autumn leaves drift by my window. So many songs use that progression. Every honeybee fills with jealousy when they see you out with me. You're my sweetness, goodness knows. Honeysuckle rose. So 2-5-1 progressions are the bedrock of jazz music. And what does a 2-5-1 progression mean? Well, it means if we're heading towards a chord, say let's say C, we're going to call that 1. Even if it's not the tonic, even if it's not the number 1 chord in the key, the overall key, let's just call it 1. Then what we would do is we'd play a chord, a minor chord that's the 2 in that scale. So C, D, C, D. We're going to play it as a D minor, and we're going to play it as a D minor 7. Now that 2 chord loves to resolve to the 5 chord, which loves to resolve to the 1 chord. And it's all because of certain notes. This C note here in a D minor 7 likes to resolve to the B note in a G7. Okay. And then we already saw that this F note in a G7 likes to resolve to the E note in a C. So you get this constant feel of movement. 2, 5, 1, 2, and so on and so forth. 2, 5, 1. Now, jazz musicians use this as a tool basically to jazz things up. They take any chord, you can do it, literally any chord, and you put a 2 and a 5 in front of it. So this first little 2-5, okay, or you could call it 5 of 5, is heading towards the F at the start of this line. Let's think about F. If we think of F as 1, not in the key of C, just think about F as the 1 chord. Well, the 2 is going to be G, right? We're going to play that as a G minor 7, A, B flat. The 5 is going to be C, played as a C7. So now, in this bit here, we've got G minor 7 to C7. And then if I play a normal F major, that's your 2-5-1. 2, 5, 1. Okay. 2, 5, 1. But we're going to play it as an F7 just because then it leads you into the C that follows. 2, 5, 1. It's still the 1 chord in that little 2-5-1 progression. But now it has that kind of feel of resolution itself, which is really, really nice. So that happens all over the place in jazz music. And sometimes we don't even reach the 1 chord. Sometimes we'll just play the 2 and the 5, or basically a minor 7 that's 5 above the chord that follows. So here we've got 5 above an A7, A, B, C, D, E. And we're going to play an E minor 7. These chords, by the way, are in the, again, on your back sheet. So your G minor 7 looks like this. barring the bottom 2 strings of the 1st fret, and then we reach over and up with this 2nd finger here. And then that one was leading to the C7, wasn't it? Which is leading to the F7. Now on the next bit, what we're going to do is we're going to do an E minor 7, and that's this chord up here. Look, it looks just like an E7, but with this finger moved away. That's going to go to an A7, okay, like that. Okay. Da, da. And you can see how close those chords are. This note's wanting to go to this one. Isn't that lovely? All right, now let's see that in the progression in place. I'll stay on close camera. So we've got C, F7, C, and then this little 5 of 5 passage. Isn't that lovely? And I like to really highlight that by just doing a down, up, down, down, up, down on both. Okay, that's simple. Let's try that. From the start, 2, 3, 4. Here it comes. Yeah, nice, right? Then we go to the F7 as before. You can either use this one or just your 3 finger. Then we've got another of those 5 of 5s. Isn't that lovely? This time in a different key. Then we go to D minor 7 one more time. That's the one that looks like this. G7. And then we've got a little turnaround. Isn't that lovely? Really, really sweet. So we've got all those 2 5-1s. In fact, that bottom line now, because we've turned the D into a D minor 7, even that's a 2 5-1, right? We've got 2 5-1 here, 2 5-1 here, 2 5-1 on the next line. And that's a real classic jazz musicians thing. You can do that to any chord that you're heading towards. Put a 2 5-1 in front of it. All right, and it works. It really works, even in isolation. Watch this. It's magic, right? So instead of just going F to C, imagine I was singing a song. F goes to C, F goes to C. I could add D minor 7 in front of the C. Have a listen to this. F goes to D minor 7 C. It just sounds great, and that's what jazz musicians discovered, basically. That's a really cool thing about it. Okay, let's have a look. Oh, Karen said that F sharp diminished 7th is missing from the sheet. Let me have a look. I bet I accidentally missed it off. Let me see. Oh no, I tell you what it is, Karen. For some reason I've put it's a typo on my part. Can you see here? This is for everyone as well. I was obviously being a bit of a wally here. Can you see on this last one where it says F sharp minor 7, F sharp minor diminished 7? That M shouldn't be there. It should just say F sharp diminished 7. Basically, it should be the same as the chord below it. I don't know why I did that. That's just really daft. So yeah, that's what's going on. We'll talk about that in a second, actually. So both of those F sharp chords should be F sharp diminished 7ths. I'll show you how to play them in a sec, and it's this one here, which is really, really nice. Okay, really cool sounding chord. Now let's have a look. Let's see what's going on here with these diminished chords. Have a listen to this. This is where things start to sound really, really cool. Now it really sounds like jazz music, doesn't it? So this is our last substitution, and this is one of the things that happens really commonly in jazz music. When we go to the 4 chord, C, D, E, F, so some type of F chord, we often turn it into a diminished 7 that is a sharp above it, or just one kind of fret or half a step above it, basically. So if we have an F chord, we'll often turn it into an F sharp diminished 7th. It sounds really, really cool and really, really sweet. So here, where we've got this F7 on the second measure, we're going to turn it into an F diminished 7th like this. Really, really cool. And I'm going to give you a little hint about diminished 7ths in a minute. Now, they always look like this. Have a look at the second line, the second chord along of the bottom line, F sharp dim 7. If you ever see them written with a little circle, like on the second line down here, that's just in place of the DIM. That little circle, like a degrees circle, just means diminished, all right? So we've got an F diminished 7 here. Now, the easiest way I think to think about it is, imagine you've taken a G major chord, which looks like this, and you're playing it on the top 3 strings, so you move every finger up a string. And then you just fill in the gap here on the 3rd fret of the A string. Okay. All right, I'll do that again. So G shape moved up towards your nose. Fill in this little finger here on the bottom, and I have what looks almost like a parallelogram. And these diminished chords, they repeat every 3 frets. 1, 2, 3, 1. That's another F sharp diminished 7. That's another one. Isn't that crazy? Now, I've got a hint that's just really, really, really useful, because it's the same shape for every diminished 7th chord. It's all because all the notes are basically, trying to think of the word, symmetrical. They're all the same interval, basically. You end up with this one shape that is every diminished chord. You just take it up the fretboard. Now, to make sure you've got the right one, all you need to do is make that shape I was showing you. Kind of looks like a parallelogram, right? G chord moved up, fill in the gap. Now, as long as it contains the note that the chord's named after, like an F sharp here, you can call it an F sharp diminished 7. So if I was to do the same shape here, this is no longer an F sharp diminished 7 because there's no F sharp in it. There's a G sharp, there's a D, there's an F, and there's a C, a B, sorry. But there's no F sharp. But here, there's this F sharp here, right? And when we go up again, this, you don't have to remember this, but this note is an F sharp. So basically, as long as you keep this shape down, if you need to remember which is which, just only one of those chord shape, only one of those positions is going to contain the note that's named after. All right. So basically, diminished chord, diminished chord, diminished chord, and this is our one that's the F sharp. Okay, if that makes sense. Now, Barbara's got a great question. That's what I was just going to answer now, with a little bit of interest in theory. The reason that F sharp diminished 7th works, and this is for all instruments, this isn't just a ukulele thing. The reason it works is that the whole chord is only one note different from the chord that precedes it. I'll show you what I mean. Let's play that F7 shape with 4 fingers again, okay? Just a reminder, that's like an F chord. Ring finger on the 3rd fret of the 3rd fret of the C string. Little finger on the 3rd fret of the A string. Now, if we have a look at the diminished shape, if I keep these 2 fingers exactly where they are, and I swap these 2 around so they're in like a Hawaiian D7 shape. Okay. Now, if we think about it, the only note that's moved, these 3 are all the same. Even though I move, I'm only replacing it. So this finger's just getting replaced by this one. So that's the same note, right? The only note that's different is this one that's going down here on this F sharp. So there's only one note different between an F7 and an F sharp diminished 7. And it's that F sharp note there. Now that also is something quite cool, because I don't know how well you can see this. What you can do to change from the F7 to the F sharp 7 is just move that first finger. F7, F sharp diminished 7. How cool is that? Notice you just get that tension from the F sharp, which is really nice. I actually find that a bit of a finger crush, so I prefer to do it like this. I swap those first two around because I find this shape more comfortable. This one I find a little bit uncomfortable. But isn't that cool? And that is literally why it works. And it works for all sorts of chords. If I wanted to turn a C sharp, if I wanted to turn a C7 into a C sharp diminished 7, that's only one note difference. How cool is that? So they're only one note different, and that's why it works. It sounds really nice. And if you're really into theory, don't sweat this next bit if you're not interested. But if you're really into the theory, the reason this progression sounds really nice is that we have this F7, and this F note here turns into an F sharp. And when we go to the C, we have a G note in it. So we have F, F sharp, G. See if you can hear that as I play it. Okay, so that's why it works. Those notes, they kind of like leading into each other. It's almost like a little mini motif, which is really, really super nice. Okay, now this gets a little bit tricky now because we've got an awful lot going on here. But let's try playing it through really, really slowly from the top. Okay. Now remember to use your little finger for this C when you start. I'll go really slow motion. So we have C for a whole measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. F7. Flip to the diminished 7. And then C. G minor 7 to C7. Then F7 again. Flip to the diminished 7. Now for 4 beats, a whole measure. C, E minor 7 to A7. Isn't that lush? D minor 7 to G7. And then we've got our little turnaround. C, A7, D7, G7. Cool, huh? Let's try that a little bit faster, just to give it a go. Don't worry if you get lost, just give it our best. 1, 2, 3, 4. F7 to diminished. C, G minor 7 to C7. F7. C, E minor 7, A7. Now, if we think back to that historical thing that I was telling you earlier, look how many chords that those soloists have got to play with. There's C, there's F7, there's F sharp diminished 7, G minor 7, C7. We've already had the next two, E minor 7, A7, D minor 7. You get the idea, right? G7, that's a new one. I think that's it. Oh no, and there's a D7 as well. So there's 11 chords, and that gives the piece of music a real flow. But, and this is really important, this is what I want you to think of at the end. And Karen, you're quite right about that, the old economy of movement, for sure, yeah. What I want you to think about at the end is the reason it still feels like the 12-bar blues is that the basic skeleton of the song is still the same. We've still got 12 bars, and it still starts with a 1 chord, and it still has the resolution of going back to that 1 chord. Then it has the change chord, the F chord at the start of the next measure, and it still has resolution to the C chord. Then it has the resolution of going from the 5 chord here back to the 1 chord and the turnaround. still works. The core skeleton of the song, if you like, is the same, but it's got all these fancy pants bits that sound really lush. And just to prove it, let's just quickly play this version one more time. I'll do both Hound Dog and St. Louis Blues so you can see. Let's do St. Louis Blues first. This sounds really good with this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. I hate to see the evening sun go down. I hate to see the evening sun go down. 'Cause my baby done left me down. Now Hound Dog, you're nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Well, you ain't never caught a rabbit, and you ain't no friend of mine. Isn't that cool? Suddenly, Hound Dog goes from being an Elvis R&B hit to really nice jazz blues. And musicians have done this over the years. It's basically how early blues kind of got back interwoven with jazz music, and then you had like the great American songwriters applying all these 2-5-1s, and it became something more sophisticated, which is really interesting. So if you're really into this, have a listen to players like Count Basie. Duke Ellington uses blues with a lot of these 2-5-1 combinations in, and see if you can spot these little bits of movement. It's really, really nice. Don't worry, Sonia, it's quite tricky, isn't it, those changes? Well, I would recommend, if you're finding it tricky for the changes, and this goes for everyone, rather than worrying about strum patterns and stuff, just practice the changes slowly. C, F7, change in, C. The nice thing is about it, because the chords are so beautiful, still sounds really nice, right? So you can really just take your time, really appreciating how it sounds, but giving yourself time to get between those shapes. And you can go as slow or as fast as you want, you know, really make it your own, which is lovely. Now, just as a little bonus, if anyone's interested, I'm not going to go over this in a lot of detail because I feel like we've covered quite a lot today, and I don't want to break anyone's brain, including my own. But if you're feeling really, really fancy pants, there's some chords up the fretboard. And what you can do is you can swap any of these chords for these chords, and you can swap any of these chords for these chords. It's the same underlying chord, it's just played in a different position, which can sound really, really nice. I'll show you a couple of my favourites rather than all of them, which sound really, really cool. So let's go back to our sheet here. One of my favourites is to take the F7 up. So you start with this C here, and then I'm going to tip so you can see my dots. We're going to play a D7 shape, but we're going to take it right up to the 5th and 6th frets, like that. Okay. In fact, if I use my second finger here, notice what a nice change that is. And the reason that's an F7, if I go back to this one, you'll see it down there, bottom left corner. The reason that's an F7 is we've just taken a D7, turned it into a D sharp 7, an E7, and then it becomes an F7. Now this one's really nice. Again, this might be causing brains to melt, and that's totally fine, right? Wherever we go to those F sharp dims, you can play them up the fretboard, because remember I said that diminished chords repeat every 3 measures. This is an F sharp dim. This is another one. This is another one. Well, if you have a look at that F sharp dim, you can play exactly the same shape as the one above it at the 5th and 6th frets, which looks like this. So one of my favourite things to do is to take that kind of start. 1, 2, 3, 4. F7 here. Notice we're on the same frets, and then I might come back down. Isn't that cool? Should we try that really slowly? 1, 2, 3, 4. C. F7, 5 and 6. Diminished. And back to C. Really cool. So that's a really, really nice one as well. So, oh yeah, sure. I'll show you a couple of riffs at the end, Karen, if you like. Yeah, no problem. That's absolutely fine. If they do sound cool, don't they? I'll show you 3 of them, and then you can have a go at them and putting them in yourself, which sounds really nice. Okay. So that's one of the chords up the fretboard that I like to do. The other one, which is one of my absolute favourites, and I just think it just works so beautifully on the ukulele, that I'd love you to have a go at it. I think it just sounds great. You know this bit here, where is it? That goes E minor 7, A7, and then D minor 7, G7. If you think about it, the kind of relationship between the chords are the same. D minor 7 to G7. Well, E minor 7 to A7 is the same thing, isn't it? A whole step up. Now that's really cool, because if we know that D minor 7 looks like this, second to last one of this row, and G7 looks like this, middle one of this row, that will look like this. D minor 7, G7, okay, D minor 7, G7. Well, if we know that each time we move a chord up, we go up half a step, just like we went D7, D sharp 7, E7, because there's no E sharp, that becomes an F7. Same thing is true of this one. If this is a D minor 7, this must be a D sharp minor 7, and this must be an E minor 7, right? See it at the end there? It's the same as the D minor 7 on the row above, but played at the third, 4th and 5th frets. And then we can apply the same thing. If we look at the G7, which looks like this, try playing that, but this time I want you to use your last 3 fingers, so you're not allowed to use this one, he's got to stay out of the way. If we move that up and cover this note, that makes it a G sharp 7. One further is an A7. Okay. So just remember that, that's the one. Oh, I haven't got that one shown, but just think of it as G7 moved up and then to here. That gives you this lovely chord combination of E minor 7 here to A7 to D minor 7 to G7 to C. Isn't that lush? Really nice, right? Again, you can come back to that later if you're interested, but that's one of my favourite chord combinations. So what I'll do, just for fun, I'll show you this one with some chords up the fretboard so you can see those things I mentioned used. So I'm going to go C, F7 up the fretboard, diminished, back to C. Then I'm going to go up the fretboard again, back to C, E minor 7, A7, D minor 7 for a whole measure, G7, and then our fun little turnarounds. Jazz hands. There you go. So we've jazzed up our blues. Isn't that terrific? Now I'm going to stay around for a little bit at the end, just in case we've got any questions. But I really want you to have a try of this at home, and you could even try it in different keys. Just think about those numbers, like those chords, like numbered, like we do in Canna Capilla, and see if you could work this out in different keys. It's a really, really good thing to do. See if you can listen to some early jazz music and see if you can spot some of these progressions. Sailboat in a Moonlight is a really nice one. If you listen to Billie Holiday's version of Sailboat in a Moonlight, you'll hear all these 2-5-1 combinations. They sound absolutely terrific, which is really lovely. As I say, another really famous example is Honeysuckle Rose, which is just basically almost entirely consisting of those, which is fantastic. Now, just for fun, just to finish off, Karen was asking about that little riff I did at the end, which you can put in a lot of blues stuff. It sounds really, really good. Ah, thanks, Karen. Thank you. I love this. I could play this blues stuff all day, and it never loses interest for me. It's what I love about the blues, even though it's really formulaic. It just sounds so nice. Now, Karen was just asking, I think I did a couple of riffs at the start. One of them was like... That was one of them. There's another one you might have seen before, or you could do. There's all these little riffs. I'll just show you a couple. This is like a little bit of a bonus at the end because it's just really, really good fun. Oh, thank you, Barbara. Thank you. Yeah. He had a Karen. Eric Clapton had a beautiful old Martin. They've Martin have a model named after him, which is really, really nice. It's got pre-war bracing and super nice. So it has that really warm tone. So yeah, I know what you mean. Ah, thanks, Karen. Thank you. So let me just show you those riffs just quickly. Really easy peasy lemon squeezy, I promise, even though they sound effective. First one, just put your finger on the 3rd fret of the A string like this. And then you can either use your 1st or 2nd finger. I like to use my 2nd like this. And you're going to pick the G string followed by the A string and then back to the G string. So in effect you're going G string, A string, G string. If you number your strings, some people like to think of them as 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4, 1, 4. Okay. And then you're going to do exactly the same thing with this hand, but you're going to take this finger down here. Then you're going to take it down one further. And then you're going to shake either a C or I like a C7. Okay, I'll do that really slowly so you can see it. Also chuck in a sneaky little G7. If you want to, it sounds really cool. And that will sound like that, okay? It's really nice. You can always slow this down later and take your time. The other way another one which is really nice is you do this G shape and take it up to the 7th and 8th frets. I'm tipping my uke so you can see the dot here of the 7th fret. So normal G major shape, but take it up to 7 and 7 and 8 like this. Yeah. And you don't actually need this finger, ring finger. We're not going to use it. We're just going to use these two. Now this time you're going to pick the same kind of da da da, but we're going to pick C string, A string, C string, like that. Then we're going to move the fingers back and do the same thing. Going to move them back one more time. And then again, I like a C7 at the end. It sounds really nice. So you get this. I'll do it slow-mo and then kind of at speed. Sorry. And then at speed. That's a nice one, isn't it? And then a really simple one that you can end 12 Street Rag, a lot of versions on ukulele end like this. It's just a simple little kind of boogie woogie shuffle going backwards. You put like an A major shape but on the middle 2 strings, and you start with it at 3 and 4. And I'm just pinching the middle 2 strings. You can use whichever fingers you like really. And then you move it back one more time and you take it off, and then you can shake out the chord again. So You can even go up in the other way. So that's just a little bit of fun. At some point I might do a lesson. I might do a YouTube lesson on those just for a little bit of fun. In fact, I think there's one already on there. Thanks guys, thank you. If you go to my YouTube channel, just Google it, ukulele, just Google Matt Stead ukulele YouTube and it'll take you to my channel. If you go to the quick tips playlist or just type in search and look for, I think it's called G Blues Ending or G Blues Run. I've done a couple of quick tips where I show you how to do each of those three one at a time. So I recorded it a few years ago, so it's not quite, it's a bit rustic, but it works. It does the job, all right? So just go to my YouTube channel, just look up G Blues Run or G Blues Riff and you'll be able to find all three of those. If I can remember, I'll post them on Facebook on the Uke Students Hangout later, so you can find them all there as well. I'll just hang on just to see if there's any questions at all. But just to remind you, for our next fortnightly live lesson, we're back in 2 weeks and we're going to be doing Across the Universe. Beautiful fingerstyle arrangement. I love this song, John Lennon classic. Beatles obviously, but John wrote it. And we're going to look at the song history. I'm going to show you the melody and the chords, and I'm going to turn them into a chord melody arrangement. Quite intricate, this one, but really, really beautiful. Chords will be, the full tab sheets will be available in advance on the website. And then hopefully end of this week, I'll have the next Beatles lesson where we're going to look at Strawberry Fields Forever, which is going to be really lovely. I'll see if I can remember that riff now because I mucked it up earlier, didn't I? I think it goes like this. Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going to... I can't remember the first chord, but I'll look it up later. B flat, I think. Yeah, anyway, I'll look it up later. But isn't that a cool little intro? Just really, really fantastic. So that's going to be hopefully end of this week or start of next week if I don't get round to finishing it. Hopefully end of this week, which would be good. Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Laura. It's probably the heat, isn't it? I brought a massive drink up and I forgot to drink it. So I'm, yeah, I feel the same. So yeah, it saps you, doesn't it, this heat? Okay, and then, of course, the next Monday thing that we've got coming up is I'll Fly Away, which we're going to look at this coming Monday. That's at 6 o'clock. Remember, if you can't make any of these lives, the replays are available straight afterwards and are all archived on my website as well, mattsteadukulele.com, where you'll find all of my lessons, hundreds of hours of lessons, 10 sequential courses, all sorts of good stuff on there. And then a week after that, we'll be back for another Can a Cappella Monday where I teach you to play without sheet music. And that one's going to be a Beatles special. So I've gone a bit mad this month. I've gone proper full-on Beatles specials for all of these. I hope you don't mind. I've just been absolutely obsessed by them at the moment and enjoying their music. So I had Sergeant Pepper on full blast yesterday and annoyed the neighbours. Oh yeah, and if you can, just remember, just hit the thumbs up icon on the YouTube because it just helps us to be picked up by the algorithm. And if you're feeling super kind, you can leave a virtual tip. If you follow the link in the description, there's a page that looks a little bit like this. This is the Melodic Mondays one, but you'll see all the live or all the socials links. You can follow any of these little gizmos here and that'll take you to my various socials and it has the website, but down the bottom, even if you don't want to support financially at all, if you wanted to help out, there's a little one that you can click and you can share the link to your friends. So if you like my teaching and you want to share it around, you can help me out with that, which would be really fantastic. Okay, I'm going to love you and leave you guys. I'll be back next Monday for Can a Cappella and next fortnightly live lesson in a couple of weeks. Oh, and the mega challenge is up as well. Sorry it took me so long to get round to it. I'm a bit snowed under at the moment, but it's all up there. The winners have been announced well done to Lance and Fran. And I've set next month's challenge as well. So check it out on the Facebook page. Again, links in the description there. Take care, everyone. I'm rambling now, so I'm going to love you and leave you. Have a brilliant week and enjoy the sunshine.